Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, for one of our Footy Fan Network podcasts with some of the greatest brains in football. I know you're thinking McLaughlin, Laura Kane, but no, we've got the boys here. We've got the real people making their opinions and their decisions based on what the AFL is doing. Is it good? Is it bad? We're going to discuss that today with some of the boys, Josh, Terry, Brad. We've got Further North, Blue Abroad, and Hawks Insider. Boys, the state of the game is a big topic of discussion. This year, we've seen MRO decisions. We've seen the way that people have been fined for flipping the bird, all those sorts of things. Let's kick it off with just a general discussion of where we think the game's at today. Firstly, though, I want to throw to you, Terry, Charlie Curnow. Trade to the Sydney Swans. It sort of falls into where we see the games going with free agency and trades and things like that. Let's hear your take so far on where we're at with that.
I think the game's been built on tribalism and community and spirit, but pretty quickly I've had to learn this year in particular with Curnow and De Koning as well. These are assets. So there's this debate internally, like I'm a passionate Carlton supporter and I want my players to be loyal. But it's all a business, and if you can get a good deal for them, you take it, if you can understand where you are as a club. So, yeah, it's been a year of detachment, I would say.
On the other end of the spectrum, Hawks, stealing Tom Barras from my club, the West Coast Eagles. You went after Zach Merritt. Hawthorn's making moves.
Harley Reid.
Not existent because it didn't happen. But from the Hawks' point of view, as a powerful club in the competition and better than all of our clubs here at the moment, where do you see things going?
It's a good question. Sammy Mitchell is changing the game and the way that opposition coaches and opposition teams are going to have to get up with the times. Opposition fans and supporters despise Hawthorn at the moment, but Sam Mitchell doesn't give a shit, and that's why he's going to be a successful coach. We missed out, but so what? You got to have a crack. You'd rather have a coach in a club that goes out there and has a crack. We got Battle last year as a free agent. We're actually paying him less than what St Kilda offered him. Barras was another one, did his time with the Eagles, fantastic person, great play at the Eagles, but West Coast at least got compensated pretty well, as Carlton did with Charlie Curnow. I get how some supporters dislike it, like it's really split. It's the same as the Merritt situation. I believe that Essendon didn't do that deal because they hate Hawthorn as a football club. If that was the Western Bulldogs, St Kilda, the Adelaide Crows, Essendon probably do that deal. But I've got to give them credit. Andrew Welsh comes on board as the president of the club, sticks to his guns. From day one, he said Zach Merritt is going to be an Essendon player day one of pre-season. A lot of other clubs in the same situation probably would have folded. Where they are at the moment, you probably take that deal. They should have taken it, but I understand why they didn't. But for Hawthorn, I don't care what opposition fans think, and that's why Hawthorn are a successful team. It's the reason why it's not a coincidence that Hawthorn have won a premiership, at least one premiership, every decade since the 60s.
Wow.
That's a good stat for you boys.
Do you think the Bombers tried to latch on to that loyalty part?
With Merritt?
With the spirit of the game? Because you can either go one of two ways. You either realise that this is a business and you get what you can, or you tie in your supporters and, you say, no, we're sticking to our guns. We're men of our word.
I think so. I just think Welsh was new in the role.
Yeah.
He had to make a stand, and well done to him. He stuck to his guns. A lot of people come trade time, they speak, beforehand, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that, and then they do it. But he stuck to his guns. So he had to come out. Essendon's had a tough 24 months probably longer. But a decision like that can go one of two ways. It's either going to galvanise them as a club. Vozo their CEO spoke about that. They think that'll really help galvanise them as a club. But on the other hand, you've now got a captain who has been, the last couple of years, it's come to known that Zach Merritt's wanted to leave. He came out and said, I'm done my service for the Essendon Football Club. I don't want to be here anymore. His own teammates came out and said they were really disappointed at what he did, and he now has to come back into the club. The reality is Essendon are going to need a miracle to win more than 10 games next season. They're going to finish bottom 5 or 6. The reality for Zach Merritt is he might get to a stage where he's never going to win a final. So it's a tough decision. He's their best player, so I can see why they kept him.
Brad, you said last 24 months have been tough for Essendon. I'd argue probably the last 24 years.
Probably longer.
have
Yeah,
been
that's a
very
good
tough.
point. Well, they haven't won a
Someone
final,
had to
have
say
they?
But also North Melbourne, Josh, has been a tough period for the club. So we've heard a little bit from a Blues supporter and a Hawk supporter, two big, powerful clubs in the AFL. How do you see things as someone who... I'll call you a bottom dweller because I myself, as a West Coast fan,
It's fair.
we are in the same boat.
I
But
look forward to playing you guys every year.
Yeah, of
Sad.
course. It's always
Yeah.
going to be close. How do you see it from a point of view from someone who is not a big, powerful club that doesn't get the same advantages that a Carlton and Hawthorn have?
Yeah, I mean, the question of the pod is the state of the game, right? And I think we saw this year compared to the year before that the gap between the top 8 and the bottom 10, or whatever you want to put it as, is widening. I think a club like mine, who, if someone wants to go a different state to Western Australia or South Australia, you can your team, like West Coast is a good example, you're 50% chance on getting that player a lot of the time. Where if you're coming back to Melbourne, we're going to be bottom 2 that you're going to pick from that. I mean, Brad made a point before about Hawthorn offered less for
Josh Battle.
Yeah, for Battle compared to the Saints. I think that is a massive advantage that those bigger clubs can have, where you can get better quality players at a cheaper price. And the Saints are a good talking point with what they've been doing, throwing around cash all over the place. And a lot of the fans I hear from the bigger clubs are saying, oh, the money's not going to work, the money. The Saints had 2 options. They could stay the same and sit in that mediocrity, or they could do something to try and improve. And as a member of the Small Club Alliance here, I love what they're doing. There's a lot of imbalances in that. It's hard to draft. It's hard to get free agents. And the teams like North at the bottom of the ladder, who have the cash, who have the draft capital, can't go and get those bigger players to then get up the ladder. Hawthorn, Collingwood, Geelong, in Melbourne, and we're just talking about those Melbourne teams here for a second, they're always up there 9 times out of 10. But the D's, North, the Bombers, I mean, there's so many Saints, they're always meandering around those bottom places. And I don't think the game does enough to be able to organically equalise. We've had discussions about priority picks and assistance packages. If the AFL made it that you didn't have to, or you couldn't request a trade, or you couldn't force your way out of a situation, you had to honour contracts, then the game could organically equalise a little bit easier. But I believe those assistance packages exist because look at Curnow and anyone who really wanted to leave that's a big name, they're requesting the Cats. Merritt wanted the Hawks, and Curnow wanted Geelong, even though he didn't end up going there. They're requesting the same teams all the time. So I think there's a big power struggle there, and I think it's a fast track to get those big names out of smaller clubs to the big clubs easier. I don't see how they improve, or North improve as quick as maybe the media want, because I hear people going, well, look at all the first round picks you got. I'm like, well, they're 20 years old.
Yeah.
You know, how are we meant to jump into finals contention next year? That's not realistic. You know, you need 6 years of proper drafting, and that's trying to avoid, you know, the compensation picks, the father sons, the academies. If you can't get free agents, you can't do it through the draft as quick. I'm confused how we're meant to do it in, you know, 2 or 3 years from when Clarko started, basically.
We've sort of talked about, you guys have mentioned the business of the AFL and stuff. And like you mentioned, big players wanting to go to big clubs. Do you guys think that the AFL is too soft in the business side of things? Because a player requests a trade and they want to go to a certain club. You know, we see in the NBA and EPL and a bunch of other leagues, someone wants out of the club should just get the best possible offer for them. They shouldn't be trying to just work with one club only. What do you guys think about players teams having a bit more FU about them and going, you want to leave our club? We're going to get the best deal for you.
Can I just make a really quick point on that, and I'll throw to you guys? A good example of this is last year when the Dan Houston sweepstakes and North offered what would have been pick 3, and then they ended up having to take pick 16 because he wanted to go to Collingwood. And something that would organically equalise this league so much better and bring that power struggle sort of closer together is if the teams with the currency, the draft picks, the money that they can throw out, these war chests we all hear all these clubs have, could actually use it. But if the player requests to go to a specific club, you're sort of out of the race.
Leverage is gone.
Yeah. And
players
I
have
don't know
too
how
much
that
power.
the balance.
And that's why I was speaking to one of the boys earlier about Merritt. I think he handled this situation shockingly, because you compare him to Charlie Curnow. Curnow wanted to get out of Carlton, but he wanted to go to Geelong, was his first preference. but he was happy to end up at Sydney as well. He gave them options. So you had two clubs trying to work out a deal to get Charlie Curnow. Zach Merritt from day one said, I only want to go to Hawthorn. The players have too much power. It would have been great to get Zach Merritt, but I think he handled the situation really badly. And I agree, clubs don't have enough power over the players. And I thought this trade period, which everyone said was going to be the biggest ever, a lot of the deals of some of the bigger players didn't go through. Marshall going to Geelong, like the St Kilda offer that they got from Geelong was pretty good. They should have probably let him go, but contracted player, keep him. Merritt at Essendon, Buku Karmas, Brisbane one as well, Kalachi.
Archie.
Great, it was a pretty good offer, and they wouldn't let him go. They're going to get him for nothing probably in the preseason, in the draft. But clubs need to get stronger, and this year I think was finally the year where they said "F you" to the player.
I agree.
Make a stand, and it's probably
Someone
a good
had
thing.
to do it.
Yeah, it was.
But by the same token, I don't know what the right balance is. But I mean, case in point, Carlton. Our environment collapsed, and we're at fault for the Charlie Curnow situation. Yeah, maybe you can blame Charlie for his attitude a little bit there, but it's still on Carlton as well. And there's a reason why Geelong, Hawthorn, Brisbane in recent times now get players requesting to go there. They build the environment. They take the time to build the environment. It's sustainable. And at the end of the day, I mean, this is a pressure cooker of an industry for players to play footy in. So wherever they're going to be where there's a happy enough environment is where they're going to want to go. And so it's no secret why the same teams, are so popular.
Yeah, and that's Josh's also a really good point about like how are the Norths and those teams supposed to compete. You look at this year's a perfect example. Brisbane win a premiership and they get Sam Draper to come to their team.
Oscar
Allen, who was the West Coast captain. He's had a 50-goal season coming off injuries, so they get better. Gold Coast, who are a really strong team, get all their academy gifts. Petrarca goes to them. They are going to be stronger. Hawthorn try to get Zach Merritt. They obviously need to get Zach Merritt. Warple is a free agent. He leaves Hawthorn. He's not a elite player, but he was a best 23 midfielder. Best 23 player in the midfield for a team that made a prelim final. So and like North Melbourne, who have finished bottom 4, I think it's 5 years in a row.
Ouch.
They get Charlie Spargo.
It's all right, man.
Ouch.
It's fine. So North end up with the Charlie Spargo.
We'll see you there next year.
Spargo was a decent player when Melbourne won the grand final, but Charlie Spargo is not moving the needle for North Melbourne. So they get Spargo, and Brisbane win a flag, and they get Oscar Allen, who's had a 50-goal season, and Sam Draper, who's eventually going to be their number one ruckman.
The other point with Brisbane as well is they went best player in the draft in Ashcroft Premiership, another Ashcroft Premiership, and we had
Fletcher.
Yep, and we had top 2 picks every one of those years, and don't get access to those players.
They're getting Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is a product of luck
and
genetics, I guess. We haven't had those father sons, but I dislike as a North Melbourne fan that nostalgia maybe can fast track some clubs to either getting up there, especially when Dacos came along for Collingwood, right? That really helped them out. Look where they are now compared to
both Dacoses.
Yeah, 100%. And then you look at a Brisbane who are getting those players when they're at the top of the game, and they've just cemented their midfield for the next, 15 years basically. And I mean, I can ask you this as well, like, from a different perspective, how do you think a club like mine can, where we are, move up the ladder? Because I think we've got the talent there now, and I think we'll slowly do it. But I don't expect to be pushing the 8 for another maybe 2, if not 3 years at best, to be honest.
It's a good question. The only way is to win. Winning changes everything, and build a strong culture at the club. And what Clarko did at Hawthorn was amazing. But I think he's under massive pressure next season, Clarko. I think he had this year was a free pass, and I know a lot of North supporters don't think so after what happened to Clarko the year before with the racism scandal. But he's under pressure because North Melbourne sold their members. We've got Alistair Clarkson. They're paying him a lot of money. He's the messiah. He's 2 bottom 4 finishes, and next year, with the amount of draft picks North Melbourne's got, he needs to start show something. So the only way that you're going to do that is to build a winning culture. What
is that threshold, though, for success? Because for me, if I think 10th is probably our peak, what we could do, more realistically, maybe around 12th or 13th or something.
As in next season, yeah.
I think the internal expectation, and me personally, is I don't see how you can turn the list around. First season, not coaching at all. He's coached 2 seasons now, a bunch of 20-year-olds, and had to recruit veterans in. How is he meant to do that in that couple of years? I agree there is pressure, but I don't think there's anywhere near the pressure that the media put on or outside fan expectation. Internally, he's got his 5 years. I don't think he's necessarily going to be our premiership coach, but if he's the guy to hand it over to someone like a Paul Roos who came in and then hands it over to a good one to do something, that's what I see Clarkson doing for us. I think a lot of people are going to say North should be pushing finals next year. I think that's crazy, personally. No. But that's what people have been saying, and that's what the media is going to judge us on. And I believe that they say those sort of things so they can get the headline and tear us down when we don't reach their very lofty
and Clark
expectation.
owes a story all the time.
And his name is a headline.
I think the thing for North to look at would probably be, you look at the Crows, who finished 15th in 2024.
Underperformed for 2 years, though.
And they, I guess, have the luxury, like we spoke about off the top. Jordan Dawson ended up, leaving Sydney wanting to go
Neil
home.
Bullen coming back to them.
Rankin was another one. So they're able to attract those type of players. Hawthorn, a good example. Sam Mitchell, in his first year at the club, Hawthorn finished in the bottom 4.
Yeah.
And then, a couple of years later, second year bottom 4, and then made the finals, won a final, made the finals again and made a prelim final. So it can turn quite quickly. North have drafted really well, but the hard thing now is being able to compete against these, as you mentioned before, Hawthorns, Geelongs.
How do you keep up?
Brisbane with those type of teams, because you've got the young talent, but you need that, the 25 plus to help guide those players.
Well, that's what we hope Larky can be.
Yeah.
Zerha,
contract to Zach Fisher.
Well, he's the guy. He's
Liam Shields,
hamstrings
they
my
try to get
friends.
Liam Shields into the club. And
What's the other guy who you guys got rid of that we were trying to have a look at? Some Ford. I can't remember his name. It doesn't matter. This is bottom 4 chat, to be fair. So who cares about this?
How good's bottom 4 chat?
Yeah, it's great.
Now, something we heard this season was that the game hasn't been in a better state. Like, the game is at its best point right now. We're all fans here. We're all trying to, half be experts, but we're also just fans that watch the game and really love it. How do you feel about this sort of notion that the game's never been in a better state?
I don't buy into it too much. My only comment to that would be, the game's meant to be imperfect. Like, the chaos of the game is what makes AFL so special. Maybe sometimes we can try and over-adjudicate or get too technical. There's a lot of lawyers in upper house at the AFL, and maybe they're trying to influence and make things black and white, whereas it's a grey game. So, I don't know, I think you have to embrace the chaos. Maybe we've gotten too technical in certain aspects. And we've got the MRO system. It tries to mirror this legal system. But
let's talk about the MRO, because I think
don't even get me started.
every fan base feels like they've been hard done.
I didn't want to complain, then I started complaining. All right, let's go, fuck it.
Complain, this is what it's about.
This is a safe space.
Yeah.
Every team in the entire league has felt hard done by the MRO. I'm going to give this to you, Josh, because I think we're on the receiving end.
I got some receipts. Yeah.
You've got some receipts. What do you think about the MRO and the way that the AFL sort of picks and chooses when they want to input certain rules and change their minds about certain other things?
Yeah, I'm confused, and I think I can speak for most people that we're pretty confused. I mean, I made a reel about. Do you remember when Tom Stewart jumped into one of the Port players' heads?
Yes.
And it didn't end in a concussion, but it was incredibly reckless. Could have seriously hurt the guy, and he got a fine. But then obviously Paul Curtis tackled a Port Adelaide player.
Great tackle.
And it was a fantastic tackle. Interesting, it's against Port Adelaide as well. But those are 2 examples where when I made this video about that, the biggest bit of backlash was, it's a football act, mate. And I'm like, well, I can give you many football acts that my players have done, and of course I'm going to use North Melbourne examples because I'm a fan, but there's plenty from every other club. I don't understand what the difference is between the 2. Obviously every fan thinks they hate the small clubs. I'm not going to pretend there's some conspiracy against it, but I've never been more confused about what is a suspension and what isn't. That Tom Stewart one, incredibly reckless, jumped past the ball. Just he chose to leave the ground and made contact with the head. Cozzy Pickett got suspended for doing that on Bailey Smith a couple of years ago in the first round. But then now that's not a suspension, when I'd say since that point, we've got more strict on concussions and that sort of stuff. Then I asked myself, is it because of the outcome? Is it because the Port Adelaide player, when Curtis did it, got concussed, but the player when Tom Stewart didn't get concussed? Our centenary game against the Doggies, LDU gets elbowed in the head in the first 2 minutes of the game. He's out with a concussion, but that's not even reported or talked about. And personally, I don't think that should be a suspension because I don't want to see players in a football act, right, get suspended. Yep. But the line that I would try and draw, which I've tried to believe is what they're doing, but they keep proving me wrong on this, is that it's not about the football act. It's not about the outcome. So what is it about? I think Terry spoke about it before. Like it feels like the game's run by a lot of lawyers, a lot of lawsuits they're trying to avoid. Obviously, there's players from the 80s coming back and talking about concussions, trying to get some money. Personally, that's the era where, maybe don't king hit your opponent behind play in the 80s. Maybe you wouldn't end up with a concussion, but. Yeah, I've genuinely never been more confused. I mean, you had Tristan Xerri. Yeah, he swung a rogue arm, and I can maybe understand that one a bit more, but letting a guy miss a month of football, Paul Curtis missing a month of football, and that's just criminal because at that stage of the season, North Melbourne lost the next 3 games that Paul Curtis missed by under 2 goals, and he was one of only 2 players in the league to kick 2 goals in every single game. And I know this is all hypotheticals, but to a team like North, who's always at the bottom and we're trying to get better, it hurts because if we win 2 more games, that's the equivalent of a bigger club winning 5 or 6 more games, and that could be the difference between us being bottom 4 again and not. So it hurts, and I genuinely have no idea what they're trying to adjudicate it on.
This is a tough question, so I'm going to give it to you, Terry, because I think you can answer it. What do you think you could do better with the MRO for us fans to better understand what's allowed and what's not, and probably even for clubs to know what am I allowed to do in a game?
Well, philosophically, I think go back to the intent of any action. Start there. A charter of guidelines, rules. If you're going to mirror a legal system, then you need a set of rules.
Precedent.
Yeah. Use precedent. But, I mean, let's be honest. It's entertainment. And an action that happens in round 22 is different to an action that happens in round 2. And a superstar player who's played 200 games and 5-time All-Australian is different to... No disrespect, Paul Curtis.
Settle down, mate. Settle down.
Do you think that's a legitimate...
You wouldn't have him, would you?
No, as in seriously.
Yeah, I know what
Patrick Cripps got off, won the Brownlow medal.
Dangerfield's done that a heap.
It happens.
If that was anyone else, they get 2 weeks
100%.
Yep.
So let's be real about what is really happening.
It's true.
Yeah.
Juddy used to get off all the time as well.
Yeah.
Should Cripps should have won that Brownlow, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
think he shouldn't have?
Well, I'm asking you, as someone who was on the receiving end of the good part of it.
Yeah. Think
look back and you go, yeah, no, he deserved that.
Yeah.
There
Superstar rule.
Superstar rule.
Comes in swings and roundabouts.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we've covered a little bit of MRO. What about so alongside of this is the umpiring, right? And the way that they change rules. Every year there's something different. They introduce the stand rule, and I don't know, for me personally, I think the stand rule for me is annoying.
Oh yeah.
What do you guys think about that? Obviously, they want more scoring. They want to see a better product. The AFL. Does that make the game better? Like things like the stand rule, or again, are we just confused? Do we not know how you're meant to actually play this?
I think so. I think it's very confusing, and I know that umpires cop a lot from the footy public. It's not their fault. When the rules are changing so often in the interpretations, I guess is a good word, where was it last year if you pointed to the scoreboard or you pointed at the umpire, it was a 50-metre penalty. Yep. That happens every week this year, and I think it was paid a couple of times during this season, but 90% of the other times it wasn't paid. So for the umpires, it's a tough gig. There's 4 of them now. Should they be full-time? I think so. Like, they don't even have a proper training facility, and they like the umpires of our game, which is absolutely crazy. Like, they get treated really poorly, not only by the public, but I think by the AFL. Like, they're important. But you look and you watch replays, you guys are younger than me, but footy in the 80s and the 90s, there was 1 umpire. And footy was great then.
Yeah.
And we've now got 4, and it's probably never been worse in terms of the umpiring of the game. And like I said, it's not their fault. It's their rules and, how they get taught as well. Like, what other sport in the world is umpired so differently on a week-to-week basis? There probably wouldn't be.
I've had this debate a bit about making umpires full-time. There's 9 games on the weekend and some VFL and State League. What does a full-time umpire do during the week if there's no games to umpire? Are they just watching footage?
It's a good question.
5 days a week? Because a lot of these umpires have, like, they're doctors, they're lawyers.
They've all got jobs. Most of them have jobs.
They've got jobs that pay more than what
You've got footy Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday now, though. There's 3 days in
training
between
as well.
football
Like
sometimes.
they train a couple of times per week.
Yeah.
Watching film.
Football
So
players
was
are
it
the
a
same.
film?
There's only
Sitting
one
with
game a
former
week.
umpires as well, learning. Maybe going out to the clubs. Like go to training. Like
Umpire their training sessions. and
most
match
teams
sims.
on their main training session have a match sim.
Yeah.
Get out there and
Yeah, it's a good point.
and that way the players as well will respect the umpires more. A good example, there was an umpire I think in the 80s or the 90s, Glenn James, I think his name was, very popular. He was an Indigenous umpire. He used to go for beers after games with the players, and everyone respected them. I think now the players don't disrespect the umpires, but there's no relationship there.
Yeah, but then Craig McRae's taking them out on dates, and it just goes.
Let's put our Laura Kane and Andrew Dillon hats on. You're sort of tasked with fixing the game, right? A lot of talk. Game's gone. Game's broken. Whatever. Let's all take a turn. I'm not going to have a turn because you guys know more than me. How would you fix the game? Josh, I'll start with you. What would be something that you would do if you were implemented as CEO or whatever at this moment? How would you fix the AFL right now?
Well, we pointed out before that the goal, it seems, from the AFL is to make the game higher scoring, but it feels lower scoring than it's been in the last 10 years, 10, 15 years right now. I don't think too much needs to tweak. I think we need to use, and this is a statement that we've all said before, but a little bit more common sense around football acts and football incidents. The game doesn't need to change too much. I think you just got to let the players compete. I think we've got to understand that, if you're in the AFL, you might get a head knock. If you're in the AFL, you're going to get... it's a competitive sport. It's a competitive environment. So you have to let them compete. I think the fans get behind nothing more than players who want to wear the jumper, players who want to fight for the badge. And I think the cautiousness that a lot of the players have to play with these days, the fans slightly disconnect from that. It's little things like we don't need a stand rule that you've just got to stand there like netball and watch the player run past you or watch the player score.
So
That's just rubbish.
Yep.
It doesn't speed the game up. It doesn't do anything. I think there was a moment where I think Sheasel stood on a mark once and then he goes, well, this is pointless. So I'm just going to run back and try and defend. And that was a 50 and that doesn't impact the game at all. I don't think the game's quite as gone as all the Facebook comments would suggest.
Yep.
But it's basic competitiveness. These are grown men. They can compete. They understand that they're putting their bodies on the line. Let them compete and let them play football. Let's take it away from potential lawsuits or we want everything to look nice for the kids and that sort of stuff and just let it be what it is. Because I've always said this thing about like, who's your target audience? And I really believe, and other people can have different opinions on this and I understand, but your 25 to 35 year old should be the target audience and then everyone else around it can get involved because the 25 to 35 year old most of the time maybe doesn't have the kids, has a full-time job. They're going to buy the beers. They're going to buy the merch. They've got time to go every single week. That is your audience you've got to cater to. Even in the Legends game, Gorringe is flipping the bird around all the time, but that was great. And I loved that. But I could only imagine the AFL HQ sitting there going, this is awful for the game. Yeah. And it's not. It's fantastic for the game. Let the players have personalities. The media is always the first people to say, oh, we want you guys to show us your personalities. But the second they do, what are you doing, mate? You can't say that.
Yep.
Give it some freedom, use some common sense. Honestly, it's not that hard to... The game's not broken. We need some tweaks, but it feels a little bit more about not getting future lawsuits than it does just letting them play and flipping a bird or someone getting concussed. It's not the end of the world.
We're going to wrap this up in a minute, so we're going to sort of quick fire this a little bit. Terry, your chance to have your stamp on the game. What would you maybe do 60 seconds or so to improve the game? Maybe not fix it. Maybe the game is not broken, but what would you do to improve it?
Game's not broken. The game is imperfect and trust it.
Yep.
You don't need to evolve the game unnaturally by trying to perfect it and change 2 rules a year. Just let the game unfold as it does and it'll adjudicate itself. You got to trust the game.
Yep. Brad?
Let it breathe. I was gonna say exactly the same thing. I do agree with what Josh said that the AFL at the moment now are too legal focused, business focused. What's everyone else going to think? Let the players have personalities. I agree with that as well. Like you look to even, who was the last, back in the 80s and 90s, like the Dippers and the Doomies and these type of guys. We don't really have those guys. Like Hawthorn's got a couple, Watson and Ginnivan. I get why they get hate, but they are good for the game. Yeah. We want those type of players playing our game, and these are the players that the kids are going to look up to, and they're the ones that put the bums on the seats. And footy fans love to whinge. Like, the game is not cooked or gone. Like, the crowds are still good, membership's really good, TV at audience is good. We all get to do this amazing stuff that we do because of the game.
True.
And footy fans like us who do this type of stuff, it's never been bigger, and it's only going to grow. So the game's not in terrible shape. Like Terry said, it just needs to stabilise, let it breathe, and it'll be, it'll grow and it'll get better. Like, whatever happens, people are going to complain. That's just the world that we live in.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Footy Fan Network. If you want to get involved, let us know things that you would improve on the game. I would just say this, just to wrap it up. How good's footy? Like, we get to talk about many...
It's good sometimes.
Mate,
depends who you ask.
we get to talk about all this different stuff. It's entertaining. You've got your players like Ginnivan and stuff. Like, what's the professional 10-pin bowler that said, love me or hate me, you still watched. Like, we
true.
get to have all of that stuff in the game. The game, I really like we said, Terry, the game's imperfect, and I reckon embrace it. Don't keep trying to fix it constantly. Josh, Terry, Brad, thank you for joining us. Let's hope all of our teams get good. Not so much for you, Brad, because you're too good
slow down
right
a bit,
now.
mate, please.
But
That'd be nice.
For some of us struggling clubs, hopefully the game gets a bit more even and a bit more competitiveness.
One day.
Go Footy.